Hey, I'm Lana from Lana Glowshot Art, and in this video, we'll be unboxing the February 2025 SketchBox. This box is all about exploring pastels and playing with a variety of blending tools and edges. Ready? Let's go. The surface in this box is the Rembrandt toned pastel paper in cream. It has a slightly textured surface that is designed to grab and hold pastel particles, but it is still smooth enough to render fine details. Next, we have the Bronzeal Pastel Pencil in Havana Brown. This is the darkest color we will be working with this month, and it will be perfect for creating crisp edges and contrast. It's also an ideal tool for drawing those smaller details that I mentioned earlier. By playing around with the amount of pressure I apply, I can create darker and lighter values with my pastel pencil. I used the medium stick sponge, one of 2 stick sponges found in this month's box, to blend out the gradient and work the pigment deeper into the tooth of the paper for a more even coverage. After blending, I re-established my darker values with the pastel pencil, bringing more pressure and more pigment to the left side of the gradient. Our next art supply is the 3 set of the SketchBox Signature Artist Pastels in Cloud White, Desert Rose, and Blue Pacific. Using the black blender from this month's box, I'll apply some Cloud White and use it to create a gradient between the Cloud White, which is the lightest value in our box, and the Havana Brown, which is the darkest. I can go back and forth between these 2 mediums, easily mixing them together to create tints of the Havana Brown. The prompt for this month is desert. Let's use the pastel pencil, our Cloud White, and a variety of blending tools to study value as we draw this beautiful desert raptor. Beginning with my pastel pencil, I start with a light sketch, focusing on the basic shapes first, and then slowly build up more and more detail when I feel confident with my basic proportions. As I begin to build up more and more of the form, I also begin to establish the shadow shapes and apply some value to the underside of the chest and the belly. When applying value, look at where the shadows are on the form and not just what the local color is. Using the Cloud White, I block in the light shapes, and this isn't just where the falcon is white, it's anywhere that the light is hitting, across the top of the head and along the back, and of course on that white leg out in the front. Once I understand how my lights and darks are organized, I come back in with the Havana Brown to sharpen the details, add texture, and deepen the values. Because this is a value study and doesn't include a wide range of colors, creating contrast with the values I'm using is important for separating the subject, which is the bird, from the background. That's why I added some brown behind the bird's head. This allows me to show the edge of the bird's head without physically outlining every part of it. When I work with pastels, I focus on larger shapes and textures more than tiny details, and that's especially true with this hawk. I add more of an implied feather texture by layering and building up and blending rather than drawing individual feathers. I also play around with where the edges are hard, like under the wing and along the edge of the belly, and also where the value transitions are softer, like in the face where the cheek would be or near the shoulder. And I blend out accordingly. You can use this combination of supplies to create value studies of any subject you're interested in drawing. Now that we've warmed up with value, let's dive into color by swatching Desert Rose with our medium stick sponge. Here I'm using Cloud White to soften the gradient and to create a lighter tint of my Desert Rose. If you're planning to switch colors but you want to use the same tool, all you need to do is wipe off extra pigment onto a clean paper towel. This allows me to swatch Blue Pacific without any cross mixing. But maybe I do want to mix colors. Well, I can do this right inside the pastel, dipping my blending tool back and forth in between the different colors. Here, I've created a gradient between Desert Rose and Blue Pacific. The last product in this box is the Faber-Castell Kneaded Eraser. This product comes in a variety of colors this month, so you might have yellow, red, or blue. Using a small chunk of kneaded eraser and a loose piece of paper, I can create crisp, clean edges in my work. I can also manipulate this kneaded eraser into a variety of shapes so that I can play around with different textures and effects in my art. You can use a loose sheet of paper to create a hard edge by applying pastel right over the top. On this month's insert, we explored how to do this with chrome. Let's use this same technique to create a more organic shape, the delicate arch from southern Utah. If you would feel more comfortable grabbing your pastel pencil and sketching in the arch first, that's totally fine. But I decided to just take my paper and go for it, almost painting with my sponge rather than treating it more like a drawing. Once I had the general shape laid in with the desert rose and then using a combination of the blue Pacific and the desert rose for the shadows, I came in with my smaller stick blender and began to refine some of the shapes and bring in some of the texture. I also jumped into my cloud white and added some of the highlights back in, so I had a full range of value. I played around with the pastels for a while until I felt that the values and the color distribution was just the way I wanted, and then I grabbed my pastel pencil and refined everything. Notice I'm not outlining the entire arch all the way around. Instead, I'm looking at those darkest shadows and using my pastel pencil to darken the value and to add some texture to the rocks. I often find that less is more with pastel, so take a step back every once in a while and ask yourself if your drawing really needs anything more or if you can leave it as it is. Now, let's put all the materials together to create a full desert landscape. Here I'm starting with the sky in the background with a combination of blue Pacific and cloud white. This gives me a light blue background, and then I fade it down towards the desert rose along the bottom. Using my loose paper technique, I carve out the mountain, and that allows me to have nice crisp edges. Then, just like delicate arch, I come in and establish the shadows with a combination of blue Pacific and desert rose. My first pass at the shadows is very loose and general, and then as I go over the drawing layer by layer, I refine those shadows and the texture more and more. One thing that I love about working with pastels is it's very easy to fix mistakes. You can blend things out, remove with an eraser, and then come in again with another layer. The pastel pencil is still very responsive and forgiving, but it does allow me to add in more details and to make my shadow shapes darker. So I do this when I'm a little bit more committed to the direction of the landscape. Once I have those basic shadow shapes mapped in with my pastel pencil, I come through with a variety of blending tools and even more artist pastel. This back and forth technique allows me to continue to tweak and refine the shadow shapes and to sculpt them into exactly what I want them to be. Value refers to the lightness or the darkness of a color, and having a decent range of values is really important for creating contrast in your work. If you find that you aren't able to get your darks dark enough, you can always go the other direction and make your lights lighter. Here, I really utilize the kneaded eraser to pull the pigment back off and to bring the paper back to that cream tone. Often this is light enough, but I can also come back in with the cloud white if I'd like the value in this area to be a little bit lighter. And now this piece is complete. I hope you learned a ton about working with pastels and a variety of blending techniques. We can't wait to see what you create, so be sure to use the hashtag SketchBoxFebuary when you post your work online. For more unboxing videos and tutorials, you can check out our YouTube page, where you can like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.